I'm sorry for their fans, but these 6 Squid Game characters are absolutely dying in Season 3. Squid Game will be entering its final season later this year, and things aren't looking good for some of the show's most beloved characters. Following the dramatic conclusion of Season 2, there are plenty of challenges and inevitable deaths in store before this story can finally draw to a close. Due to the violent nature of the show, very few characters will survive Squid Game, regardless of whether Ji-hun manages to overthrow the frontman or not. While there are plenty of plot points that Squid Game Season 3 must avoid, there are also certain things that seem inevitable to happen. It's been proven from the first season that only one character can win the games, and if Squid Game takes a different route this time by having the players overthrow the guards, that will assuredly bring many casualties too. The final episodes of Season 3 are going to be bloody, and it's hard to imagine that certain characters will make it out alive. Cho Hyun-ju is one of the newer additions to Squid Game's cast, having been introduced in the second season as an unlikely ally of Ji-hun in his revolt against the games. She's one of the few contestants who quickly realizes how corrupt and unfair the games are, working alongside her fellow players to survive the challenges and end the competition as soon as possible. She quickly takes a leadership role in Ji-hun's revolt, leading many of the strongest fighters in their charge against the guards. There are only a few ways that Squid Game could feasibly end, and the majority of those resolutions don't leave room for characters like Hyun-ju. Whether Ji-hun manages to overthrow the frontman or whether he ultimately joins him, Hyun-ju is looking more and more likely to be a pawn that's sacrificed in the battle. She's far too strong to go down without a fight, but the show has done a brilliant job of creating sympathy and compassion for her, which makes me concerned about the writer's intentions for her. If there's ever been a more obvious candidate for a last-minute sacrifice in Squid Game, it's Park Young-sik. The young contestant is perfectly poised to take the fall for his mother at some point in Squid Game's third season, and it would surely be one of the show's most emotional and upsetting moments. Throughout Season 2, Young-sik struggled to balance his love for his mother and his greed for money, which resulted in one of the show's most compelling dynamics. There were several moments where he let his greed get the better of him, and this is something that his death in Squid Game's third season could redeem. Whenever there are existing friends or relatives in the games together, audiences should always be concerned about their destiny, as proven by Sang-woo's death at the end of Season 1 and Jung Bae's similar fate in Season 2's finale. Squid Game's writers may be using the dynamic between Young-sik and his mother to create a similar dynamic that ultimately results in tragedy. Lee Myung-ji may have started his Squid Game journey as a fairly unremarkable side character, but by the end of the show's second season, his role in the story became much more significant. Formerly a successful YouTuber, Myung-ji quickly gathered attention among other players for his notorious cryptocurrency scandal, which caused many of the huge debts that affected other contestants. He's essentially the reason that some of the show's most important characters are even taking part in the games, which made him public enemy number 1. Myung-ji's murder of Thanos in the Squid Game Season 2 finale was a pivotal moment that established him as one of the show's central characters, and it's certain to have huge consequences in the upcoming episodes. He will become even more of a target for the rest of Team O, and his death could trigger an all-out war between the two factions. His previous relationship with Jun-hee is also worth noting, increasing the likelihood of self-sacrifice to protect those he loves. For the majority of Squid Game's second season, Namju is essentially the right-hand man of Thanos. He's among the few characters who stick by the antagonist's side at every turn, leading the conflict against Team and directly causing the deaths of other contestants to ensure that the prize fund goes as high as possible. With Thanos' death in the previous season's finale, Namju will likely take a more central role in the upcoming episodes as the new leader of Team O and Ji-hun's biggest opponent among the remaining contestants. This rivalry makes it difficult for Squid Game to end without Namju's death, particularly since the third season will likely focus more closely on the dynamic between Ji-hun and the front man. It's unlikely that Namju will pose much of a threat to Ji-hun individually, but the rising popularity of Team O could prove to be a formidable obstacle to the protagonist's attempted rebellion. It will be difficult to follow in the footsteps of such an incredible villain as Thanos, but Namju may end up surprising viewers with his hostility and bravery. Although it's unclear exactly what's going to happen in the final season of Squid Game, one thing's for sure: Daeho is currently Ji-hun's strongest ally among Team. His military history frames him as a fierce soldier who's been instilled with values of honesty and loyalty, while Jung Bae's death in the previous finale will likely motivate him to lay down his life in the battle against the front man. He's never shied away from a fight, and this could end up being the character's downfall in Squid Game's third season. Dae-ho is also one of Squid Game's most likable and compassionate characters, which probably doesn't bode well for his future. It's been proven time and time again that selfish players thrive in these violent games, and selfless people like Dae-ho are often the first victims once the numbers get much smaller in the final games. Interestingly, many audiences are theorizing about Dae-ho's true identity and the veracity of his backstory, claiming that he's not really a Marine at all. If this is true, the character's chances of survival are likely much higher, as he's played a brilliant game so far. The front man is Squid Game's central villain, and the man behind the mask took a much larger role in the show's second season. Following Ji-hun's attempts to throw the games off track, In-ho entered the competition undercover to sow discontent among the players and prove to the show's protagonist just how unstable and selfish people really are. He's the ultimate villain of Squid Game, and it's highly unlikely that the show will be able to conclude without his death. However, the exact terms and conditions of his defeat are completely up in the air. While the most likely outcome for this violent show is that Ji-hun will murder In-ho and bring the games to an end, some audiences suspect that Ji-hun will actually become the next frontman after becoming so jaded by the actions of his fellow contestants. This would be a very surprising and pessimistic ending for the show, but it would admittedly fit with Squid Game's themes of human corruption and the futility of doing good. Either way, In-ho would also have to die in this scenario before Ji-hun could adopt his title and continue running the games however he wants.